just going to go live.
It's all the way live.
All right. It's Monday, June 5th, 2023. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we're talking about technology adoption and where that line is. Mostly for us. Do I have an opening bit? Did anything happen?
I can, but it's not.
We went biking. Biking home from work the other week. A crazy guy just threatened to kill me kind of randomly, and I just got away from him.
Why does this happen to you? Whereas I biked to work so many times.
It was the weirdest, thing I've ever happened. No altercation. This wasn't even like a car honks and I flip him off. It was like I'm sitting in the bike lane on a city bike, like in an actual separated bike lane, just waiting at a light. And I hear a person talking, and I'm just not thinking, I'm ignoring them. And then I realize that the person's talking to me, and it's a dude just in a car that's in the lane next to me. Just, the car has no license plates on it at all. And the dude is like looking at me through his closed front window, but the rear window is open. And he's just like talking at me and gesticulating. And then he's like, pay attention to me when I'm talking to you. So I look at him. And then he just starts saying, you fucking bikes got to get off the road. You're going to get people killed. And just starts going off on a weird rant. And I tried to bike away, and he started to follow me, like through the red light, right at like near the UN. So I just got out my phone and pretended to call the police, and he booked it, and that was the end of that. It was weird because I just heard a voice, and I didn't think anything of it. And then the guy was getting increasingly agitated that I wasn't looking at him. The no license plate thing was the cream of the crop, so I figured I could just like the pretend to call the police.
This is why we need Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's the exact kind of thing Spider-Man could deal with effectively.
Spider-Man could deal with that so perfectly. That guy would be hanging by a web, right?
Yep.
Spider-Man would throw his car in the East River. So, Spider-Man's strong enough to pick up a car, and he can take the dude even if the dude has a gun or whatever.
Yep.
No problem.
That was the most exciting thing that happened to me, other than just like biking normally.
If I find a genie, I'm gonna wish to be Spider-Man. We don't need to be Superman. We can keep it easier than that, right?
Which Spider-Man?
Regular Spider-Man.
Well, I guess it could be Scott Spider-Man, like whole new Spider-Man.
Yeah, as long you just had to have as long as you're strong enough to pick up a car, and you can get it, and you get web shooters. What else do you need?
There's a couple other things you need.
You need Spidey sense.
What you need Spidey sense, but that's just part of his powers.
Those three things. That's all you got.
I'd argue there's two more things, but both of these, one of these might just be another Spider-Man power, and the other one I think is the plot of this overall Into the Spider-Verse world. You need S-tier wisecracking skills. You have to be able to wisecrack in any situation at all times and never stop. You need to be able to do it. A few Spider-Man.
Deadpool does it all the time. Spider-Man only does it at the beginning of the comic book, and then he doesn't do it. The opening scene where he catches some normal bad guys when he does it, and then maybe when he fights the main villain, he does it a little bit, but then he's serious the rest of the time.
I guess you got to be able to wisecrack in any moment if you need to, because occasionally there's the Spider-Man where the wisecrack comes.
Really just you have to be able to say, it's like the wisecracking is mostly for the entertainment of the reader. But if you're an actual Spider-Man in the real world, you just need to be able to say something to make the opponent angry and,
flustered. Maybe hesitate.
Discombobulated.
So the listener has a question for you. Would Spider-Scott work on Fridays?
With great power comes great responsibility, right? It's like I don't have a very important job, so why, right? But if I'm Spider-Man, well, first of all, right, it's like, what am I? If somebody dies on Friday and I'm Spider-Man and I could have saved them with no effort and they die because I didn't want to work that day and I wasn't fighting a supervillain or something more important that was going to kill more people, right? Then in a way I killed them. So that you can't have that.
And the other important thing is Spider-Man always has to try to save both people.
I mean, you gotta try.
Yeah, you gotta try. I think that's the key.
Depends what's going on, right? It's like,
I feel like Spider-Man always tries, and I feel like that's where Spider-Verse is going. But anyway, there's, we haven't done a Monday show in a hot minute because of a bunch of reasons, and we're back, and turns out today is Apple Day, and also there's a ton of tech news, so we're only going to talk about two things.
Everything was timed well for us, not like some other times where there's been big tech news on Tuesdays. Right?
Yep.
We got big tech. I think it's because it's a WWE. I think there's always, if I look historically, I don't remember. But because I only really remember that like the iPhones are always in September, October for back to school, and the WWDC is in the summer. I don't remember exactly when, but I get the feeling WWDC probably is always on Monday because it's a conference for all the devs and they start and do a whole week. So I bet if we look historically, WWDC has been kind to our Monday shows.
Of course, I also have this feeling that I remember us always saying, man, why couldn't this have been yesterday? But was that just because didn't have time to read it all?
I mean, it could be that I'm just guessing wrong because I didn't actually look up when these things happened, but I'm betting that those are all not WWDCs. Those are all other, tech announcents on other days, right?
All right.
Anyway,
yep. So there's a bunch of really
long show. Let's talk about all the shit.
There's a bunch of minor Apple updates, which always happens. Like the one that actually stood out to me was that they're removing the "Hey" from "Hey Siri. And
really? Okay, I don't think that's not that significant. Who cares?
In that Siri, when I do have it enabled, likes to chime in.
I never have it enabled.
Yep, I've tried it out. And what I found is that Siri likes to chime in and try to answer things that I didn't ask.
Since the day Siri launched, whatever day that was.
But it does that a lot. And I see other people who have it enabled all the time, like at work, where it'll just chime in all the time. So I feel like removing part of the wake you up thing is not the best idea because I don't think they've got a technological advancement that enables this. I think it's just ease of use, marketing, branding.
Change, basically. It's just a UI change.
Yep. But it's a UI that is a new type of sort of trigger UI to cause an audio interaction. But really, I just think
I don't see this as any different as like, oh, they changed where the icons are, right? It's just because it's an audio interface instead of a visual interface. It's, it seems different, but
I bet we'll see people having it activate more often and complaining about it.
I just never had it on since the day it launched. Yep. I tested it once, I turned it off, and I have never turned it on again. I guess the only of the minor Apple news is, number one, the next iPad OS is cutting off the first gen iPad Pro, which I had, but no longer have. I think Emily's mom has it or something.
I forget where that ended up.
Yeah, but I have the third gen one, so I assume I've got 2 years left on the third gen iPad Pro, which does not have an M CPU in it. It's got the old A whatever. So I think I've got 2 years left of the iPad Pro, and I could see, the plan I've been thinking is that, because right now I got the iPad and also the, desktop computer, right? I could see a world still in which Apple either, I get some MacBook or they make a MacBook that flips over or something, right? And I use that to replace both my iPad and my desktop, but only my desktop for my everyday computing biz. And then I go out and get a tiny computer that's basically just a GPU in a box.
Yep, the dedicated Play Steam Games box.
Exactly. Anything I need the GPU for, right? I can remote desktop or Steam Stream or even KVM to use that box that has an NVIDIA something in it, right? And then do everything else on some sort of, iPad, MacBook Pro, something, right? And I think that's where I'm personally headed.
Yep. It's tough because I bought a Surface Laptop 3 pretty much when they came out. I got the top spec one, and it's still totally fine. So I can't imagine.
Still totally fine.
Yeah, I can't imagine buying a new laptop or tablet or anything, at least for the next 4 or 5 years at this point. So I'm just waiting.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, I mean, 2 years from now, I assume I'm going to get cut off from iPad OS updates. I think so. I'll have to do something, right?
Yep.
So, and the iPad is my primary computing device when I'm. I guess I have that phone and desktop, right? My three.
When I'm traveling, I use my laptop just as my primary device, like when I'm sitting down typing stuff, homework, anything. But the only thing I use that laptop for seriously is GeekNights panels.
Right, but I'm saying like I use my iPad a lot seriously, right? So, but I could save money basically by sort of combining it, and anyway. The other thing that I think people really glossed over, but I thought was really cool was, and the Apple Watch, they got these new the new watch face, they showed this Snoopy one. Did you see that?
Oh, I didn't see that part.
They got a new Snoopy watch face that is like the most dynamic like watch face I've seen. Like they were having it like, oh, if it's raining, then Snoopy in Woodstock will be all sad getting rained on. And like, he'll like be sitting there on his typewriter during your work hours. And like he throws a crumpled up paper and it lands on the watch hands. And it's like, anytime you look at your watch, like there would be some like something fun, happening. Right. And, I mean, I don't think there's any other watch in history that does to that level, right? It's like, kids' watches just have a character with two arms.
All the faces I got today, just if I look at it, one thing happens when I look at it.
Yeah, it's like, so that's, I mean, I probably won't use that watch face.
Yeah.
But it's still, I just thought that was really fascinating, sort of new idea that hadn't been done. All right,
they did add that Apple password and passkey sharing among Apple devices. So like I could share a password for a thing with you or someone in my family, but keep it end-to-end encrypted so you don't know my password.
I mean, 1Password does that. I mean, Apple did a few things that are basically competing with existing products. Like they have a new journaling app and stuff like that.
But the password one's interesting because while I could see myself using that in a few limited circumstances, mostly, like there's separate accounts and separate logins for everything.
Yeah, obviously.
But the handful of things that are shared for some reason, either because the service doesn't support it, there's some reasons. We don't access any of that stuff on Apple devices, so
that's why I use 1Password. But yeah, I think that people. Some people, like, they jump to conclusions, like panicking, like, oh no, all the journaling apps are going to die because everyone will use the Apple Journal app. Oh no, 1Password's under threat because everyone will just use Apple passkeys and keychain and this instead, right? It's like, but if you look in the App Store, Notes was on the first iPhone. That's how old the Notes app is. Look how many note-taking apps are in the App Store and how well they do, right? Because no matter what Apple does, people are not completely satisfied with the Apple official app. So why PowerPoint is still alive and hasn't been defeated by whatever it's called.
Keynote.
Keynote. Yeah. Even though I would use Keynote if I had a Mac, right?
I would. I wouldn't because honestly, Google is perfect for what we do and it's easy. And
Keynote's real fancy though. Like you can make something more if you use Keynote and go in on it. You can make something that's more impressive, right, than you can with any of PowerPoint or Google Slides.
True.
That's the value of it, really. I mean, they make the app. Well, I guess they don't do them that way anymore. Now they do videos.
Yeah.
But when they did them in the theater, they used Keynote for those, right? It's like they were dog food in that. So it's like, anyway.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about the Apple Vision thing. So for many years, there were rumors and rumors and rumors. Apple was going to do some kind of goggles, kind of AR, something, right? No details, really, just lots of rumors they were going to do it, right? Rumor. Then recently, everyone's like, this is it. This is where they're actually it's coming out. And there were all sorts of whispers of like, drama behind the scenes of like people thought it wasn't going to go, but they pushed, Tim Apple pushed it through. And other people were like, I don't know about this. But turns out it was true.
Yep. But I guess the most important thing is that there was a disconnect in my mind up until this was announced between my knowledge of what VR and AR is capable of at retail price points and like what the state of the art is for consumer versus prosumer versus professional. And based on what people were claiming the Apple One could do, I could not see that fitting into those price points.
Claims. At least I didn't read any of the claims.
I was speculation is all I saw.
I mean, I didn't read literally anything. If there was people speculating or claims or rumors of what it actually did, I never read any of those. All I read before today was Apple is going to make some kind of eyeball apple on your face.
But I knew it was focused on AR and overlays, and that's not easy or cheap to do. And there's a lot of reasons why there hasn't been much like that before. And the answer was that it cost $3,500. That's how it has that level of technology.
You're jumping right to the $3,500, the exact opposite of what they do in the keynote, which is save the $3,500.
Yeah, no, let's bring that up front because I want you to be disincentivized and know that you're not going to buy it before you hear about how cool it might be.
Right. So forget what it does. Right. For anything to cost $3,500.
That's a gaming. That is a top tier gaming workstation all in.
Right. The things that I have that cost that much money. Right. Even the cameras, like fancy cameras I have, are not that much money. They're like at half that at most, right? Not even half that, right? So it's like my computer isn't even that much money. And maybe if you include all the monitors and all the other ancillary equipment, it's like, no, what do I have that is on its own?
My workstation,
$3,500.
My workstation without monitors when I built it was about $3,500. But
I've never bought a computer that expensive.
You may recall,
it's like $2,000 at most.
I built that thing during the Intel 6th generation, and it is still my primary workstation because I overbuilt it.
Just a few months ago when I went on Newegg and I priced out a new computer, it wasn't $3,500.
Well, $900 of that.
Intel CPUs and NVIDIA 40X something.
Well, part of it was because $900 of that was a relatively early, super fast M.2 PCIe hard drive.
Anyway,
that was a terabyte.
I don't think I own anything that's $3,500, right? So therefore, maybe a piece of furniture, like. Was the couch that? I don't even think the couch was that.
I think our digital piano, the full, like that one,
might have been $2,000.
That digital piano cost around $3,000 in the 90s when we got it, and I still have it.
Couch cost, right? But let's pretend that I did have a $3,500 couch, even though I don't think it is. Is it this one? No.
Well, couches, a good couch has a lot of value in your day-to-day life and will last you basically forever. This is the first iteration, first gen of something from Apple. Think about the first gens of things and how much they advanced in later generations in the history of Apple.
Nope, the couch was $1,700, so not even half. So in order for me to buy anything, no matter what it does, right? It could be fucking, unless it makes money, like it's the hand of Midas that I would pay, right? It has to be something that I use more than my couch, use more than my mattress, use more than my desktop, use more than the chair I'm sitting in right now that it cost me $1,000 and I bought it over a decade ago, more than my bicycle, which was less than $3,000, I think. It was less than $3,500 because it was on sale. I think the retail was $3,500, right? It's like,
yep. Well, also
use this thing constantly for it to be worth that much money. And
a Valve Index.
I am not going to be wearing something like that on my face like 8 hours a day every day.
A Valve Index all in, assuming you have a workstation to plug it into, is only $1,000, including like the beacons and everything.
Right.
So 3.5 fully featured Valve Indexes, or a Valve Index headset is like only $500. So
there is nothing in my life that I have currently valued at being worth paying that much money for. So there is no way I'm going to buy this, no matter how, even if it matches everything it's purported to do. It's not, and I'm not rich, so it's not happening, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about what the hell it does. I went before I knew anything about what it did, only that there were rumored AR goggles of some kind.
And people seem to be really confusing if it was AR or VR, and it looks like it's trying to do a little bit of both.
I think it's pretty much AR, but people are just saying VR because people don't care about.
Well, it is doing both in that it has two primary modes that are dynamic. If you're in an immersive app, then it fully immerses you in it like VR.
Yeah, you can do an overlay. Block out the world with it because you're not seeing out into the world at all. It is completely blocking. There is no optical viewfinder, right? It's your only vision of the outside world is through cameras, and then it's basically taking a recording of your face and has outward facing video screens so other people can see like a simulation of your eyes. They're not seeing your real eyes, but it looks like you.
Yeah, it's got a cool UX actually. Like I do like this one UX element in that it'll show your eyes to people if you can see the world through it because you're using overlays. But if you're in an app, it'll blank your eyes out, so anyone looking at you knows that you can't see them, that you're doing something else.
Right, but it's like going into it, I was like, this, if they actually come out with something like this, right, it's just going to be something that rich people buy to show off and don't actually use that much. Sharper image type nerds buy it. Apple fanboys who are loaded might buy it. And companies might buy it for demonstrations and installations and showing off and demos and things like that, right? And there might be some industrial applications, or Apple partners that buy it so that they can then get their company highlighted on the Apple keynote. It's like, oh, check out what cool Company X is doing with our product. They always do that, right? But I don't think anyone else is going to be a customer of it. And I still think that that's the case. I don't think they...
Well, I think where they've set the price point, there'll be the people who performatively have it to show it off. But I think they're really... My guess at their actual strategy is the only people they actually really want to buy this are either influencers who will just make it look cool to set the stage for people being excited about future versions of it, or
they want developers to buy it for sure because it's WWDC, right? Is why they decided to show it off because they want people to make software for it, to come up with ideas for it that Apple didn't have.
I'm pretty sure their actual target demographic for who would buy this headset is almost entirely industrial and operational companies. This is the kind of thing
there
that
are already competitors in that space.
There are.
It's like the Microsoft HoloLens or whatever.
There are. And the only thing I can see different based on what we know about it so far, because they haven't released every detail about it. Like we're going based on what WWDC said. It seems like it is a material advancement in capabilities from all the existing AR headsets that are available to purchase.
Based on what they said, who knows what the reality is?
Yep. So my plan is I want to, when I can, without waiting in a line, I want to try it out at an Apple store.
Yeah, everyone is.
Because this is the kind of thing that I am very interested in. AR is such a killer app. But that said, I ain't dropping $3,500 on something as excited as I am.
I can afford to, and I'm not going to, right?
There's not a 0% chance.
I'm going to drop $3,500. I'll just buy MacBooks, right? It's like, just get MacBooks.
Because I've had the experience in VR, like regular old, like consumer VR in an Index, of just using the desktop apps where I'm sitting at my desk and I put on the headset and I have several monitors and things all around me in free space that I can spin around and look at. And I've found that useful in some situations and interesting, but that was not materially better with that level of technology, especially that level of comfort, than just having a smaller number of physical monitors in my real space.
Right. So here's the thing, though. Despite the insane price and despite going into it thinking that's just some ridiculous product I'll never need, right? They did sell me, right? They were showing the use cases for it, right?
Yep.
Here's why you might want this. And I was actually sold on 2 use cases where I could see those are viable use cases that show me why this product actually makes sense as a real thing that someone might need, right? Mm-hmm. So the first use case is, effectively speaking, this is like 10 monitors and a home theater in a very small package, right? So if you are, say, somebody who at home does work with like several monitors, but you also travel a lot, and when you travel, maybe you've got the biggest MacBook, right? That's still just one screen. Maybe you've got their iPad next to it to do the double screen thing, right? That you can do. It's like, that's still 2 screens. This is smaller than that, kind of, and is like enormous screen, effectively speaking. So if you're someone who does multi-screen work and you travel, this lets you be very productive as you would be at home on the road. And that's a value proposition that makes sense. Right?
Similarly, and we were talking about this before the show, you live in a tiny, crappy place.
Tiny space, tiny little closet. You're like a Bender living in a closet or some shit, right? You can't possibly fit maybe got a tiny little TV if you have anything at all. You can't fit a whole computer desk in there, right? but you want to have the experience of a home theater and a big
This
computer desk.
plus a lazy boy would not be the worst way to go if you're alone in a small space.
Yeah, I mean, if you think like if you're talking about the price, they actually say this in the keynote, and it's not. I can't disagree. They're like, yeah, listen, this is $3,500, but for the price of a home theater and a computer and a bunch of monitors and speakers and et cetera, this is actually less than the price of all those things combined. So
Now,
if you live in a tiny space and you want all those things and would use them frequently combined, and you buy this and don't buy those other things at all, you're no worse off because you're basically spent the same close money, and you saved a lot of space in your apartment, and you can now save money on rent. You're living in a smaller place.
Now, on one hand, you could buy, for the price of this thing, 7 Index headsets, which are high-resolution VR that can do a lot of what this does. You can watch a movie at pretty high resolution comfortably. Yep. It has similar specs, but we're waiting to see the full specs on this thing in detail, but based on what they've said, it looks like because of the more limited scope of what this device is intending to do, mostly that it seems to be very good at overlaying a 2D plane or a curved, effectively 2D plane with content on it, as opposed to doing a full 3D rendered world of like in a gaming VR. It would probably be orders of magnitude more quality for similar computing and battery and weight and waste than like a Valve Index, which leads to
the feature that lets your MacBook, if you have one, if you somehow can afford this and a MacBook,
they cost about the same.
Show up as a screen among your screens, and that's like you're really getting the productivity going on that way.
But especially because this part of the price point seems to be that they can, because of what I described, have that high resolution experience in a headset that looks like it's not heavy, and it is tiny.
Because the battery is at the end of a cable and only lasts 2 hours. So.
Yep. Which
you're going to be using this plugged in at home or plugged in at work. You're not using, right?
I mean, we'll see.
But also notice that the battery, you can detach the cable, which means you could buy a bunch of extra batteries for your long flight.
Yep, because that was a problem with Google Glass. Not that that's more like an auxiliary screen as opposed to AR, but you know, we had Google Glass. We wore it for a couple of years. I recently went through my archive of every photo I took with it, and it was a shockingly cool flashback of what my life was like back then. But I digress. Its main problem was that it only had a battery in it. So there wasn't a good way to plug a battery into it and put it like in your pocket to keep it going without a really ugly USB cable. And because of the way it was designed, it would overheat if you did that. It had all these problems. I think having the battery external on a wire is a really good idea.
Well, I think it's just the best they could do. I think it's a problem.
Well, it's better to have. It's kind of like you want weight to be sprung.
You don't want it, yes, you obviously don't want it on your head. Right?
Yeah, you want weight to be sprung in your car.
It's the best they could do given the circumstances, but it's basically just like because of the circumstances, it's just not good enough, right?
I think that's fine. That I have no complaint about that little cable.
Well, I think it's not so much the cable. I think it's more that you got this whole fucking battery. That's
it's tiny, though. I can see a picture of it. It's smaller than my phone. Just stick it in your back pocket. You're good to go.
Oh, in the video, it looked like it was like the size of like 3 phones, the battery.
I think there's different versions because I'm looking at some photos, and the photo I've got right now, it looks like my small Anchor. Not the tiny lipstick one, but like the old black Anchor.
Right, we'll have to see how big that battery is. I thought it was a large...
I imagine they might have multiple sizes, and
the battery that I saw looked bigger than like the biggest iPhone.
Now, the question really is going to be, is that just a battery or is that also the wireless? Did they confirm that?
Yes, the thing that you attach is just a battery because the alternative is to plug into the wall.
Okay, fantastic.
In the headset, all the chips, all the radios, all the cameras, they're all in the face part.
Nah.
So the other use case they sold me on, right, was when they showed a person on the airplane, like turning the knob to sort of turn off the AR and go to just basically effectively VR, but basically block out the world and put in like a fake, landscape around everything, basically the wallpaper. Because I saw that as like, that's like noise canceling headphones when you don't want to hear anything else, right? Other than what you want to be listening to. Only this is like noise canceling for your eyes. I don't want to see I want to close my eyes and see nothing, right? I don't want to go to sleep with a sleep mask, but I don't want to see anything at all. I don't want to see the people next to me. I don't want to see what's going on in this plane. but I want to see what I'm working on only. Noise canceling for the eyes.
Which we did a show on augmented reality in like 2013.
Yeah,
and I
took it to the next level.
Ad block, IRL ad block, which I'm pretty sure we talked about in 2013 on the show. Because imagine if you could just replace every ad that ever appeared in your real life walking down the street with
all the billboards, all the flyers, all ads on TVs that are in a restaurant. There's a TV and your goggles like block the TV during the ad.
Yeah.
Right? And then the noise canceling blocks the audio from the ad, even though everyone else who isn't wearing it still sees it because they're in the restaurant.
That is a killer app that we're a ways from, because this is not, based on everything we know about it, the walk around with AR in your daily life. This is the task-oriented augmented reality.
Yeah. Now, the one that they sold on me a little bit, right, was when the guy was like watching sports on TV and they had all this extra stuff around the edge of the screen, right? Because like, when I watch a hockey, I might have like a Discord open where I'm chatting with people about it, and I might have some stats websites open.
If I could pop Discord, just be floating like above the TV.
Right. If I could just look at the TV the whole time and see all that stuff, or better yet, go to a live sporting event and be able to keep my eyes on the action and see that stuff around without having to look at a phone, take my phone out and look away from the game. There's something there, but I don't think it's not as compelling as the other two things I mentioned. Or
I would argue it's hyper compelling, but in a future state of AR hardware.
Yeah. Now, the thing that I was absolutely the opposite of sold on was when like they showed the dude taking photos of like his kids with it, right? And it's like, and I was like, notice how every person he's taking a photo of, all the memories, right, are photos of people who are not wearing these stupid glasses, right? Only the person who's taking the photos is wearing these. Like he's in the kitchen and like he takes photos of his kids over there. It's like, no, right? If you want to be honest, you got to have the kids wearing these and the whole family wearing these, and then take the photos of your family, and you have a memory of everyone wearing these stupid fucking Apple goggles. And that obviously they didn't do that because that doesn't sell, right? That's too obviously dystopian.
Well, especially because what's funny
goggles
is
way.
Lesser tech, like those Snap glasses that kind of failed, or Google Glass. If you want to just be able to take photos, that was a killer app. Like the photo taking of Google Glass was way more useful than most of what the rest of it did. But
yeah. So I don't think this is something that you're going to be wearing around the house just your whole daily life. You wear it when it's like time to sit in the home theater.
Google Glass was
productive,
or
when there's a special circumstance, like, this is a time where this is going to enhance the activity I am about to participate in. Therefore, I will apply it.
The phrase is task-oriented augmented reality. That is what this is.
Going to be wearing this thing. They have not shown me any legitimate case where I think it's actively bad to be wearing this when doing anything for which it is not very well suited.
Say I had one. You know where I might wear it? Biking, to like have nice directions.
I would not wear it while biking. The battery dies in 2 hours. Once that battery dies, you see black and you die. Right? Hell no.
I can plug that into a bigger battery.
I guess if your bike ride is like 30 minutes, but I don't think that's a terrible idea, especially since they said they bragged about reducing lag. The lag is still probably more than zero.
I would wear it as the head of panels at a convention, sitting in panel ops, doing my thing.
Maybe.
I could see myself doing that.
Maybe.
I could see myself wearing it, like watching a movie with friends remotely, especially during like a COVID time.
Yeah, if you're talking about jobs, right? I could see, somebody who's at an information booth, right? You could greet the customers, you could see them and talk to them and bring up information and answer their questions without looking away.
Oh yeah, you know who would be wearing this A+ at a 5-star hotel? The concierge.
Right. A teacher or a professor could wear this, right? While they're teaching a class, right? Because then they wouldn't have to like go and futz with their thing and change the slides, or they wouldn't have to have a separate monitor to see the slides if they had any, or things like that, right?
They can have answers to they can look up answers to things students are asking in real time, so they don't admit that they don't know.
Right. I mean, there are cases like that where it becomes a value. But for a person, I guess I only see this first version a good buy. Rich, company has a use for it, or you live in a really tiny space and somehow, even though it's $3,500, it makes economic sense because it's still cheaper than a bigger space, a home theater, and a computer, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And while, I don't regret buying in and like using Google Glass for basically its entire life. Yeah, I'm saying I don't regret.
This is Google Glass for you and all your friends.
I don't regret that. But that price point ended up being like about how much value I got. Like, I don't regret spending that much money.
You used Google Glass a lot.
I'm not gonna get 7 Valve Index headsets worth of value out of this thing. I don't.
When I had the Google Glass, I woke up, took a shower, I put it on. I didn't take it off till the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. This is not that level of usage.
Yep. But you know what? It's not even coming out till 2024.
Right. What will this look like? Right, in 2030. That's when, right? Is there going to be Apple Vision Mini, right? What is that going to look like? And I think that's when we might start considering, maybe getting it if you have.
Well, I'm going to link to the episode on augmented reality we did in 2013 because
what the hell we said then?
Pretty sure the future state of augmented reality has always been the same idea, and just hardware cannot achieve that yet, nor can software in our current world. So it's kind of moot. But when we get there, augmented reality is existentially and foundationally shattering to how humans interact. But that's a ways off because the hardware is not there. AI is going to mess us up way before we get to that.
Yeah, I think the most dystopian thing about this was not the eyeball thing, right? Where you're not seeing the person's real eyes when you look at them.
Though I want to put non-human eyes in there. I want little robot eyes.
But the thing is that basically they said that when you set it up for the first time, you sort of aim it at your face so it can see your eyes, and record them and whatnot. But also when you set it up for the first time, it captures your whole face. Because let's say you FaceTime someone while wearing this, right? Well, there isn't a web camera aimed at your face,
yep.
Right?
It's basically going to make a sort of automatic VTuber for you.
If there was a web camera aimed at your face, what would it see? It would see a person wearing stupid fucking goggles, right? So that's just not going to work for FaceTime. Instead, when you set it up and it captures your eyes, it captures your face, and they create basically a virtual you, sort of like a live...
It's a VTuber. It's an automated VTuber of your actual face, but it's also, if someone somehow steals that data, that's everything you need to make deep fakes.
Sure, but it basically deep fakes you so that if you FaceTime with this, people can sort of see a virtual you instead of the real you while you're talking to them with FaceTime. But meanwhile, you see the real them because they're using normal webcam and they didn't spend $3,500. That was I think a negative thing. It's if you're going to FaceTime, you do not want to use this. Even if you own one, it's FaceTime, take that thing off and get your iPhone out, right? It's
yeah. I could see using it for FaceTiming corporate presentations, stuff like that.
Completely separately, they added FaceTime to Apple TV. That looked great, actually.
Oh yeah.
You just have to use your iPhone camera or something because the Apple TV doesn't have a camera, right?
Nah.
But that actually looked terrific. That kind of makes me think maybe Apple TV isn't a worst idea. Even, HTPC is still way better, but it's my HTPC isn't Apple, so I can't FaceTime with it. But Apple, Apple TV, I can't run ROMs or Steam with it.
So one other news that we probably won't dwell on too long because this is the tip of another long iceberg conversation. I'm going to read. This is a post in the Apollo app Reddit. It's very short, the top part. Had a call with Reddit to discuss pricing. Bad news for third-party apps. Their announced pricing is close to Twitter's pricing, and Apollo would have to pay Reddit $20 million a year to keep running.
Right. So if you don't know, Reddit is a popular website that's, a lot of people say a lot of different things about it, but it's basically, forums, right, that are all separate mostly, right? So each, people say, Reddit's full of shitty people, but actually that's like saying, PHPBB is full of shitty people.
Yeah. Counter-Strike is full of shitty people. Yes, that's true, but also that's missing the point about public spaces and people.
Right. But Reddit, I think, is currently like in terms of the the platforms online. I think it's like, in my opinion, at least, it's like the best one right now.
Hey, if I'm trying to figure something out, I will go to a Reddit way before I'll go to a fandom wiki.
Yeah, I use it more than a lot of the other
or
ones.
a YouTube video.
Because I have been very choosy. I unsubscribed from all subreddits except for a very, very few that are extremely relevant to my interests. Like the one for the neighborhood I live in that is very active with cool people and has lots of good info, right? New York City biking. Like that's specificness.
I'm in a micro group there that is just people who live in Queens who play euchre.
Right. So it's like Reddit is valuable, but the user interface of Reddit, despite the fact that Reddit has like less ads and it doesn't have no ads. There's less ads and less BS than a lot of the competitors. The UI, basically, they had an original UI that is okay, but it's so old web and tiny text. It's not, I know people like it because they're old school and used to it, but not a fan of that because it's old and hard to use. And they got a new one, which is a little bit better, but also worse in a lot of ways, right? Because it's slow and janky, but it just looks nicer, right? But it's more modern, I guess. So people love third-party apps. Use the Reddit API, get a better UI because the official UIs are garbage.
And third-party apps just broadly, like forget Reddit, are very much, they don't follow the World Wide Web's ethos. Like there's a lot, like this breaks down pretty quick. But the World Wide Web, one of its key components was that information is made available and you can render it however you want in the client. And you shouldn't care how anyone renders your content. And third-party apps...
There are standards that browsers are supposed to follow, but if someone wants to change that, it's like, who cares?
If I want to always see things in Comic Sans, like, sure. If I want to block ads from your website, sure. But third-party apps serve the same purpose because somebody's going to want to use Reddit differently, and it should be in that same ethos. Yeah. Anyone should be able to interact with that public service where someone has an account and render the data they get out of it any way they want. But
when this topic comes up, accessibility also always comes up because a lot of websites are not, and other web services are not super accessible in their default forms, and a lot of third-party apps either exist because they are better than the default in terms of accessibility, or that's like a side effect. Like they happen to be better UI. That's why they have customers. Therefore, they're also better UX and more accessible. And so now they become necessary for people who have accessibility issues in order to access the service in a good way.
Yep. But this leads to, because if an objective way to make any user experience both more accessible and a better user experience is to not have ads in it.
Yeah. So basically, Apollo is the best. I use it. I paid for it. Third-party app for Reddit for your phone or your tablet or whatever you got, right? And it's it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than any of the official Reddit app or Reddit website. And I like it a lot. So much that I paid for it. But Reddit has decided, well, we're losing money, right? That guy's making money selling his app. We're losing money because everyone who uses that app to go to our service is using our bandwidth, right? Getting our content, costing us money, but they're not seeing our ads. So we're going to charge them money to hit our API, and they're going to charge so much that basically their financial model no longer makes sense because nobody's going to pay that much to use Apollo.
CNBC is reporting on this, and they have the money line, one sentence at the end of the article. With the digital ad market facing a slowdown and Reddit now 18 months removed from the notification of its confidential IPO filing, the company may be facing pressure to bolster its revenue.
Yeah. Well, Reddit, if you don't know, was originally like a standalone company. The guy who founded it, I met one time. He was a Silicon Valley dude.
Yep.
He was a weird dude, but somehow he ended up marrying Serena Williams and making babies. I thought that was the weirdest story. But yeah, they seem to be happily married, so great for them. So that dude isn't there anymore, right? Reddit got bought by Condé Nast, the magazine company. But then basically there's this other holding company that like owns Condé Nast and several other things. Reddit got broken off of Condé Nast and moved up. So now it's at basically the same level as Condé Nast, owned by the same holding company. And so I don't know how you can IPO when you're a wholly owned subsidiary. Does that mean you're no longer owned by the subsidiary? They're effectively selling the company to the public? Is that how that works?
I'm not familiar with the details of how this one went down.
I don't know. But yeah, there have been rumors that they're going to IPO, and they haven't. So who knows yet, at least. But yeah, Reddit is, doing very well in one sense, in that it's sort of picking up a lot of steam from all these other internet platforms doing poorly. I mean, that's how I came to it in the first place, was when like Dig and a lot of other things failed, and I sort of had to, I gave up and went to Reddit instead.
Yep.
Right?
Well, the fundamental problem that we talk about a lot, it always comes back to capitalism. None of these things make money.
No.
And actually, the CNBC reporting on Reddit specifically points out that Reddit makes the bulk of its money from advertising, and it has never been able to significantly monetize its users compared to even Facebook and Pinterest, which have done they've captured a lot more money per user. Reddit cannot capture money from users, partly because I think a lot of people who use Reddit heavily are the kinds of people who aggressively block ads.
Well, I think also the people who are using Reddit are the people who are there for a specific thing. They're not doom scrolling, right? Or you can't just throw some other shit at them that's not what they're looking for.
I go to the Astoria Reddit.
If it's not ads.
I read every recent post, maybe and that's it. Then I'm done for the day.
Exactly.
Maybe the week.
People go to Reddit and, they search for a specific thing, find it, and that they're done.
Well, notice how if you Google for stuff, a lot of times the Google auto suggestion will just add Reddit to the end of a question because people are trying to find a Reddit that answers it compared to a YouTube video.
They don't know how to go to site:/reddit.com, or they don't know how to go to Reddit first and then use.
Well, also some of the other searches in Google, total aside, that I discovered this on YouTube. Google and YouTube have quietly removed some of the operators that used to work.
Interesting.
Like minus has stopped working in YouTube searches.
Really?
But not in Google searches.
I'll have to test that.
Yeah, I tested this a bunch,
and I that problem.
I found I haven't used minus on YouTube in a while.
Yeah, I guess minus is not something I use on YouTube generally. But yeah, Reddit is in trouble, and if they actually go through with this and ruin the third-party apps, they might be in more trouble, because the one thing that's actually keeping Reddit afloat is that they don't pay moderators anything. Every subreddit is something that someone makes for free, and whoever starts the subreddit has to moderate it themselves or get moderators, and those moderators are all working for free, right? Unless somehow someone has a subreddit and they somehow make money and then they can pay their moderators, but Reddit isn't paying anybody.
Nope.
So even though they probably should, because moderators work harder than YouTube creators, and YouTube pays YouTube creators somehow. So regardless.
Well, YouTube pays YouTube creators somehow. 99% of them make dozens of dollars a year.
But Reddit moderators make $0.
Yeah.
Right. But the Reddit moderators are like, they're the most Reddity, right? They're like, you already don't pay us, and now you're going to try to ruin Apollo and make Reddit even worse. Screw you, right? You won't exist without us, and a bunch of major subreddits are going to just go dark, right? They're like, these subreddits are still ours, right? We moderate them so we can turn them off.
Yep.
Right?
The tricky part is nobody has a place to go except rolling their own.
Sure, but the point is that they can still put a lot of pressure on Reddit by making Reddit's Reddit doesn't have enough control of its own website. Like, it can be made useless by its users.
Well,
right? Turning off
like Twitter. Twitter is getting getting worse and worse because people who make content are just leaving it slowly and steadily.
Exactly. So,
but I guess here's my
blackout on Reddit, and we'll see if that pressures them to change the.
Here is my worry. If that pressure is successful, Reddit can't make money and will eventually go away anyway. If that pressure is not successful, Reddit will get worse and still won't make money and will still go away eventually, because we're still skipping the fundamental point. None of these fucking websites make money.
I think Reddit could be... I mean, it cannot be capitalist successful, right? If it's trying to IPO or...
I think Reddit could run at a break-even.
Right?
I think Twitter could have run at a break-even.
I think Reddit could be run profitably.
Yeah.
Not vastly, but profitably.
Yeah, when I say break-even, I mean it can pay for its expenses, and maybe it generates a little extra.
If Wikipedia and archive.org can carry on, Reddit can carry on if its only goal is to carry on.
Name a third one that carries on. Like, that's the problem. Wikipedia, not many, not big ones. Wikipedia, partly because it's the only game in town for that, and also because it has a lot of institutional donation. Like, but Wikipedia has somehow convinced all of society, except extreme right-wing nut jobs, that it is a net good for the world. A lot of people earnestly believe in the mission of Wikipedia, probably orders of magnitude more than even know what Reddit is.
I think the people who are the Reddit people, the people who use Apollo, right? If Reddit were somehow, the ownership of Reddit was moved to either a nonprofit or at least some group.
Public benefit company, something like that.
Anything that didn't care about making a lot of money, that just cared about maintaining Reddit. First of all, the first party apps and the website would stop sucking.
Yep.
Right? And so you wouldn't need the third party apps. And second of all, they would be able, if they managed to do that, then they would be able to garner the massive donations like Wikipedia does.
I think you're right.
So
they could even make the case of, look, if we can get enough donations to keep this human resource alive, then we will stop selling ads forever.
Yep. I think, we just need the ownership of Reddit to change hands to the right party.
But the problem, just like with Twitter,
like Flickr went to the, Flickr is not doing well numbers wise, right? But it was, it's now owned by SmugMug, I think.
Yeah, and it is Flickr now sells a product that its users pay for, and I still pay for it, and it's a fine product.
It's like people have forgotten Flickr, but Flickr is well taken care of, right? It's there. It's not going anywhere. So I think Reddit, if in the right hands, it could be well taken care of.
Oh, absolutely,
but not its current hands.
Reddit and Twitter and things like it, no social media network, no popular website could ever pay back the people who threw their money at it in the first place, expecting it to give them money back.
Unless the amount of money they gave in the first place was very small.
Yep, which I don't think that's the case, considering these things have never made fucking money at any point.
No, what did Condé pay to buy Reddit?
But anyway, we've gone on almost an hour. This is what happens when we don't do shows for a while.
Get giant news. Yeah.
We also get pent up. We don't, because we haven't hung out a lot. COVID's still winding down. Things of the day. So this real short video, 54 seconds. This is a, you're probably familiar with water toilet and hole toilet, like the two primary kinds of toilets, either just a hole or a hole with some water in it. But did you know there's a third, chemical toilet that's out there. There's the toilet with acid in it. There is another kind of toilet many of you might not be familiar with. This is the fire toilet. You poop in this toilet, and it incinerates your poop into a fine white ash. No smell, no sound, just ash. And you dump the ash out every month or two. And this video in 54 seconds shows you how this thing works, and it is pretty cool.
My solution is...
don't live in a place where you need to use the fire toilet.
That's correct. We don't need to have the fire toilet.
I mean, this is from Svalbard, so this is basically like North Hebra if you're playing Tears of the Kingdom right now.
Don't live there.
Live on the edge of North Hebra hanging off that cliff.
All right. So when people talk about writing programs in assembly language, usually they're talking about writing programs for an embedded device, a microcontroller, an old computer, like an NES game, or just if it's for a modern computer, they're talking about writing something that prints some text or does something really small, right? The idea of trying to write imagine trying to write a modern application like fucking Discord or YouTube or something in assembly. It's that's not happening, right? But here, I've never seen this before. This thing of the day, someone has a whole tutorial, right, with all the code of how to write a GUI app in assembly, right? They're not writing the whole operating system from nothing. This doesn't run on bare metal. It's you already have a Linux computer with X11, and you're going to write a program that actually opens a window and puts text in the window, but you're going to write that program in assembly. And that's pretty impressive that they were able to do that, I think. And I think there's a lot to learn if you go through this exercise. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. In the meta moment, the GeekNights Book Club book was The Satanic Verses. We're done. Did the episode. Great book. You should read it. The new one is the book recommended by everyone's favorite person, Biggles Dickolas Wolfwood, that made the rounds. This is How You Lose the Time War. That's the title, I think.
That's correct. The book is very short. It's like 200 pages, and it has 2 authors, which might break our website a bit. The 2 authors, I hope I can pronounce their names correctly. I think one of them is Max Gladstone, easy name. The other person is Amal El Motar, I guess. Sorry if I should look up how to say your name. I will for the next episode.
So we'll
You'll probably never hear this anyway. I'm sorry.
It's a short book, but just in fairness and because it's a book club to give you time to read it, we'll go a month instead of just doing it the next Thursday episode. So that would mean on Thursday the 29th, unless something comes up, we'll do the book club episode on this book because it's like 200 pages from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Like
And
I'm going to read this in an
something-
afternoon.
Just so you know something about it, Hugo Award winner, Best Novella. Nebula and Locus Award winner, Best Novella. One of NPR's best books of 2019. And the summary is basically there are 2 secret agents, right? One of them is from the cyber world, right? Where there's like a singularity cyber brain, right? And the other one is from also sort of a world that's a singularity, but it's the garden, the tree world, the elf singularity with trees and plants and flowers, right?
All right.
And they're against each other, and they're both time traveling rapidly and basically writing letters to one of them. Starts writing a letter to the other one, and then they don't stop writing letters back and forth. So I guess there's a word for it. What's it? Epista something? A story that's told through letters that are written.
A story told through epistles?
Yeah, how you lose the time. It's a word. It's a new word I just learned because of this book. An epistolary novella. Epistolary means a story written as a series of letters. So that's what you're getting. You're getting a bunch of letters written between these 2 time-traveling secret agents who are living in different societies that are fighting a war against each other through space and time.
All right. So let's get into it. Because we went long, we don't have to go too long on this, but we did sort of already cover this. Like we got into this topic talking about that Apple thing.
Yeah.
So
Well,
in general,
topics for a lot of Mondays these days. We look at the news.
Yep. But it really it's more how do we, and then how could or maybe should you decide when to adopt a technology? Like, where are the bright lines on, like, this is a technology I must adopt immediately at any cost versus this is a technology I not only will not adopt, but I will aggressively fight against other people adopting it. Like,
oh, that's even further. Not just avoiding it, but preventing other people from using it.
Well, here's an example. I'll give some examples of technology adoption. Cryptocurrency. I have spent my professional career since the dawn of it. I spent about 2 months on a committee to look at this new technology when blockchain appeared to determine if it had any value. And I determined with this working group that it had no value of any kind, that it was basically likely worthless. And now, following that thread, I have continued to actively and aggressively try to prevent its adoption wherever I have the power to do so.
Yeah, well, that's a technology that is actively harmful to the world at large, right?
Yep.
So
For no benefit.
It's harmful to the world, then it's also harmful to me because I live in the world and everyone I love and know and care about. So therefore, yes, try to destroy it.
Yep. But then another completely different example, let's say VR technology. Forget even the Apple thing. Regular old VR, the kind we know about from Oculuses and Rifts and gaming and all that, where it's progressing steadily and it almost hits these series of milestones where every time it hits a milestone, a larger group of people decide that it is above their line and they adopt it. Scott's line is way higher than mine. My line is way higher than several other people we know. We know some people who adopted VR like when the original Rift was announced, like before there was even any hardware. Through Scott, where you're still waiting for it's so tiny you don't know you're wearing it, and it's fully immersive in all possible ways.
Maybe not even then. I still have to have a need for it.
Well, there's a difference between need and want as well, because those lines are...
Yeah, want, but it's like, no matter whether it's technology or not, right? The question I always ask myself is, am I going to use it?
Yeah.
Right? And we talked about the bowling balls many times already, right? It's like, if I'm going to buy anything, it's am I going to use it? And I don't judge things by their price. I judge things by their price divided by their use, right? If I buy something for $10 and I say I buy a t-shirt for $10 and I wear it once, like I actually feel kind of bad, even though it was just $10, because like that's $10 to wear the shirt one time, right? But if I buy a fancy t-shirt for $50, but I wear it like every week for years, it's like, I don't feel bad about that at all. Right? So whenever I'm going to spend money on something, I don't look at the price as a raw number. I imagine, am I actually going to use it? Am I going to get the value out of it, compared to the price? And then that's how I judge whether it's going to happen or not.
And that value can be different things. Like, forget VR. Talk about, because the Nintendo Switch, Breath of the Wild came out. We always used to talk about how don't buy a video game console just because of one exclusive game, because that implies that you're basically paying the price of the console plus the price of the game just to play the game. The console has to be judged for you by the collection of games you'll play on it relative to alternative ways to play that collection of games. And there are very few exclusive games in the modern world on consoles. But for Nintendo, like Tears of the Kingdom, I would say right now, for me, the 2 Zelda games alone would have been worth the price of entry to buy a Nintendo Switch. It'd be close, but I would have bought a Nintendo Switch to play these 2 games, even if no other game existed for it. I think that would have happened. It would have been close on my line, but that would have been an okay line. So let's see. In terms of like cell phones, we wanted cell phones before cell phones existed. Like I wanted a cell phone when I was a little kid and wireless phones appeared, like the wireless phones you could have in your house but not have a cord. We wanted one so bad, but they were so expensive our family couldn't afford one when they first came out.
Other people had them.
Yeah.
And we just still didn't get one because why? It wasn't super necessary.
It would have been very useful to us. Big house.
I mean, yeah, it'd be nice, but it's like we just didn't get one for like a way,
Our sole reason was money, because that's sort of one of the big factors there of value divided by money. But even if the value is high, let's say I would use, I don't know, a helicopter to go from here to skiing. Like I could just helicopter to ski. The value that would provide me personally, ignoring the externalities of the harm that causes to environment, because that's a different discussion, would be enormous. I would ski so much, it would be ridiculous. But it doesn't matter how much value I get out of it, because the dollar amount it would cost to leverage that technology in my life would be so astronomical that there's no universe where I could reasonably afford that. So even almost infinite value is destroyed if you do not have the capital to reasonably purchase and interact with said technology. Case in point, these Apple glasses, they're so expensive that I can imagine if they were $1,000.
They were going to be more expensive, but the price is still too high.
7 indexes worth of cost. You can buy 7 Valve indexes or 1 Apple augmented reality.
You could buy a MacBook and have lots of cash left.
It's like that old penny arcade where like, oh, I bought an iPod, it doesn't skip. And Tycho's like, yeah, I have a CD player and I cushion it with $400 of cash.
Yep. You could buy 10, 11 Nintendo Switches and have money left over.
So VR is one of the few areas where Scott and I, our lines are actually a little bit different, because we generally kind of adopt things at about the same time. We have similar access to resources. Like we tend to have similar opinions about most technology, but I adopted VR I'd say 3 generations before Scott will even consider adopting VR.
I wouldn't use it. When would I use it?
And I think that's a component of this that a lot of people overlook, because a lot of people look at a piece of technology like these glasses and they think, what would I use it for from the context of a consumer, a gamer, etc. But let's say Scott and I were going to try to make apps, like we're going to try to monetize in some fashion. Then owning dev kits, owning the technology to make something on, even if we wouldn't use that thing all the time, is suddenly a much better value proposition, because it's almost like a tool of your trade.
Well, it's not adopting a technology. That's purchasing capital for your business.
Yep. But for example, I was interested enough in VR to where I bought a relatively early VR equipment. Like I bought the Oculus Rifts and now I have a Valve Index, specifically not so much because I wanted to play specific games, because even now in the year 2023, there are less than 10 A-tier VR games. Like there aren't that many serious quality.
I saw a super hot VR speedrun at SGDQ. It took him like no time at all.
Yep.
And it was really fascinating because that's a game where you're like, you stop to make the bad guys stop, right? And you move to make the bad guys.
If you're good, you don't have to stop.
But that's the point, is that to do a speed run, you have to basically, he's like constantly flailing his arms even when nothing's happening to make sure the game keeps going.
Yeah.
It was like a workout. He's lucky it was mercifully short.
And that game is absolutely phenomenal. It is one of the best per minute of time I spent playing. It is one of the best video games I have ever played.
But apparently you can do it in 15 minutes.
Yeah, if you're good at it, but play it from the beginning. Like, do you want to judge Breath of the Wild by the 23-minute speed run? Link running naked and screaming straight at Ganon with a stick. But I guess while it is one of the best video game experiences I have ever had, if you're seeking VR to play that game and every other VR game that's at that level of quality, all of them combined are not even close to being worth the amount of dollars you would have to spend to have the VR to experience that in the first place yet. You'd better have a lot more you want to do with VR. So I found that the line for me was, one, interacting with people online in spaces like VR chat, because they're so early, I almost want to personally do my own primary research about them. And two, in terms of experiences, I want to make VR experiences, so I wanted to interact with the technology as it evolved, and I'm willing to pay for that. But that is the value I'm getting out of VR. The games I play is maybe 5% of the actual value I've gotten out of VR. Meanwhile, our friend Penny just entered VR a second ago. It just popped up in Steam.
But I mean, like, you paid all the money for the VR. Are you using it?
Yeah, I actually am. I use it pretty regularly.
How often do you use it?
Until I got sick and it got warm out, like during COVID, a couple times a week. Like,
all right, so there you go.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably more than I used my Switch, but again, it caught, the Valve Index costs more than a Switch.
But here's the problem. A couple times a week when the weather's not nice. Which is a problem, because now not only is the weather nice, but we're entering the long tail of COVID winding down, meaning I'm doing a lot of stuff again, and I'm doing stuff at the times I would normally be hanging out or playing with VR. So that's a different problem, but I've definitely gotten the value I wanted out of that Index, but I'm not going to buy like an Index 2 anytime soon.
I think the tough question is, if you ask yourself, are you going to use something, but something is, new. It's a new technology. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like you have to sort of, you can, when you watch an Apple keynote, you can imagine the scenarios that they present to you, right? But then you have to sort of figure out like, well, those aren't things that anyone can do in life right now.
Yeah.
Right? Because this technology is not available to the public right now. If I acquire that technology, will my life change, or will I intentionally change my life so those scenarios they are presenting to me, or some that I've imagined that they didn't imagine, are actually now occurring in my life?
And that requires a degree of self-awareness and introspection that many people cannot achieve without great difficulty, because it is easy, like, the Apple thing could block ads in real life. Sign me up. But guess what? It doesn't do that yet, and it likely won't do that at any point.
Or something simpler. It's like they show a feature like FaceTime, right? And it's like, okay, video chatting with people, right? It's like, all right, if I don't have an iPhone right now, right? And I've never video chat never I know video chat existed before FaceTime, but let's pretend that there's never been video chat before, and someone's trying to sell you a video chat machine, right? And you're thinking like, will I use that, right? Well,
young Rim, naive Rim would have said, fuck yeah, video phone, it's the future. Old Rim, I never want to be on video chat. Even when I'm talking with friends, I want it to be audio only, because the video often ends up being annoying.
Will people I know also buy it? Will they video chat with me?
Yeah.
How much, right? It's like, right now, what do I do in my life right now in terms of chatting with people? Right now, I'm texting and phone calling. Am I going to do this? When am I going to do it? Who am I going to do it with? And you sort of have to imagine this different life, a different you of the future. and what your behaviors are going to be, right? And it's like, I've had Apple devices capable of FaceTime for a very long time. I've FaceTimed maybe a handful of times.
Yep. I'd say, when I use video chat at work because we're required to, and when we do Geek Nights, and rarely, mostly during COVID, when a large event happened and we were all so desperate that we all joined a big old Discord call and half of us had our cameras on. And even then, the cameras were such a cacophony that they kind of weren't worthwhile.
Now, maybe you look at your own life and you say, I got these parents, family that lives in another country. I emigrated somewhere. I only see them once a year. We talk on the phone, but I only get to, hear them. It would be nice to see them. I have, I have like young relatives that are like probably grown up a whole bunch. I probably wouldn't even recognize them.
Yep.
Right. But they sell iPhones in that country and they sell iPhones in this country. And my relatives probably couldn't get Zoom or anything to work. Right. This will work easily. Right. This is worth investing in. It's going to get used. It'll actually change you can imagine this scenario because based on what your life circumstances are, how your life will be improved. Right. And so, that's actually probably worth a lot of money to you, even if you don't use it that often, even if you only video chat once a month or something like that, that probably becomes worth it to a person with that story versus a person who everyone they know lives in the same town and they hang out every night.
Yep.
Or they don't have any friends. They're antisocial. I live in a cave.
Yeah.
It's like, so
I guess much like the Scott policy of don't buy a game on Steam unless you're going to play it immediately as soon as the transaction's complete.
Love that great policy. It's still working. I highly recommend that.
I've been following it on Steam for a few years now, and it has been shockingly effective at preventing me from buying games I'm not going to play.
Yep, I've saved quite a bit thanks to that policy.
Yep. But I also, when I have bought a game, even if I don't play it a lot, occasionally I've bought a game to play to see how it is, partly to see if I should tell anyone else to use it. Just like with VR, I didn't just go into VR like blindly after watching Oculus people talk about how great it is. I went and got demos from the company in that booth at PAX, behind the scenes, and looked at it and tried it and read the specs and understand exactly what the limitations were and what I was getting into. So I didn't go in with unrealistic expectations. And I think a lot of people, just generally in the world, but especially nerds, like you kind of alluded to earlier, they'll get excited about the possibilities of a technology or a thing, but they won't actually think about the reality of what that thing is. And they like to pre-order before, I don't pre-order anything anymore except Zelda games.
I pre-order some things.
There's nothing I pre-order anymore.
People imagine, or they're what the ad has sold them, right? Or, the vision in their head does not match reality. And so they end up making purchases. And then the things that they bought just end up sitting there. They were aspirational purchases.
Last time I pre-ordered a game that wasn't a Zelda game was... oh my God, it was Team Fortress 2. And the day it came out, I regretted that I had spent that money. And had I waited a day, I might have just not bothered with it.
I think this happens the most with exercise equipment. People buy exercise equipment and then don't actually use it. That's a very frequent occurrence, for obvious reasons.
Yep.